Critical pedagogy is basically the study of oppression in education, the study of how issues of race, class, gender, sexuality, colonialism will shape the nature of what goes on in education and shape the purpose of education.
What it's not, in my estimation, is just a theoretical perspective in a university.
So let's see if we can develop a better understanding of capitalism.
But we don't ever divorce ourselves from the theoretical.
I don't think it's a recipe for the future, as some people, suggest that it is.
Let's see, what's next?
I don't think it's merely an ideology.
Its record of improving human welfare is unmatched in all history.
Critical pedagogy is teachers asking why, and students being allowed to freely ask the same question, why am I learning this?
What about the employee, the worker?
It's not like it's the most popular thing to do in education.
The fanaticism which the right attacks you now, it's no holds barred.
It's an uphill struggle, but it has to be carried out. 3 or 4 kids in one class, properly taught and educated, can multiply.
There are a lot of good teachers out in the world doing critical pedagogical work.
And it's our job to be able to better define it so that we can better promote it.
What is a circle? Billy Henlow.
A circle is a closed curve in which all endpoints on the circumference are equally distanced from the center point.
Very good.
I was a high school teacher, and the vice principal came up and he said, I don't want students sitting in a circle. I want them, in a straight line and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have an answer for him. I didn't have the theoretical language. And ironically, the week earlier, somebody had given me a copy of Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
The book was called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I read it in 1970.
I stayed up all night, got dressed in the morning, went to school. I felt my life had literally changed.
I think that Paulo certainly will be remembered. I want to help in making that happen as the greatest educator of the 20th century.
For me, what is fundamental is for the people to understand not only the process of the learning, of the creating skills, but also for what to have skills.
Critical pedagogy suffers from presentism, and by doing so it erases its history, it erases some of its core assumptions, and it forgets basically the kinds of struggles that it's gone through for which some answers already have been given. And they're not bad answers.
Education is generally regarded as neutral, but working class people, and particularly the immigrants, are increasingly dissatisfied with this supposedly neutral education.
I don't think the system has changed. That's the way it still functions.
It's like a production line. You produce cars, you produce students. Fordism in the market has become incredibly dominant.
What's an assembly line? There's this like a belt that keeps on moving, and it brings dinners to her and she puts them in boxes. He was working and a sewer fell on top of his 4 fingers.
What happens now with curriculum and what teachers are told is that the very things that make up the nitty-gritty aspects of the lives of working class children are considered controversial.
But I think it's really irresponsible for those of us who are advocating this kind of curriculum not to talk about what this really can mean. Because when kids start talking about and writing about and reading about their lives the way they are, then where do you go from there? And I mean, that's really what Freire is talking about too. It's a explosive situation, and teachers have to be prepared to deal with it.
How would you prepare them? How would you prepare them? How would you prepare them?
The work we do is dangerous many times. People aren't happy to see disenfranchised groups raise their voices. They're not happy to see kids in the Bronx in 11th grade going out and doing slam poetry and saying, I exist and you have to listen to me.
It's been 400 years since slavery. They promised when they gonna pay reparations. We need to change how the principal is walking around high and mighty thinking like, yes, I'm invincible.
Critical pedagogy have to have connections, you know, to real educational happenings.
In 2002, I developed a performance poetry curriculum with high school English teacher, Tom Painting, and a local poet, Rena Golden. Last year, the project got big. It went citywide with Rena at the helm, and the winners of the City Slam became the Rochester team. They went to San Jose, California to compete in the U Speaks International Teen Slam Finals.
Welcome to California! Welcome to Great New Voices! This is what this country needs. The #1 fear in the United States is public speaking.
Education plays the role of helping support that imperial behemoth.
It ain't fair that all I got is this scrawny piece of land called a reservation.
We are the progeny of genocide. Inhabitants of a country where mass murderers get national holidays and there is no mention of the millions that died.
There's no elegy I can write that return life to these indigenous bones. We were never dead.
I just think if the world knew how powerful Slam was, that we could change so much.
Warming sounds friendly. It sounds like tea or a firm handshake. Try global burning. Global skin snaps, fat sizzles, eyes desiccate. It's big!
In the next 25 years, there are going to be absolutely dramatic changes in terms of the carrying capacity of the earth, disparities of rich and poor.
We do our teachers a tremendous disservice when we don't integrate them into the questions that drive the very nature of life at this time in human history.
I am the masses.
I am the masses.
I am the masses. Educate myself. Put what I learn into practice.
Ultimately, I think challenges to empires which defeat them and create new conditions have to happen inside that empire.
Central to the project was the notion of the poet as agent for social change.
How does poetry change the system? That's my question. It's not something that we can shout and throw rocks at from afar.
One fist in the air can start revolution. Our poems can start revolutions.
People need to recognize that learning is fundamental to the question of agency, and agency is fundamental to the question of politics. And I think that if people make those connections, then critical pedagogy will become central to any field and almost all disciplines, and will be taken utterly seriously.
What's the purpose of schools? What type of people are returning out? Are they better equipped to address and help end human suffering than if they hadn't gone to school?
The most important thing I would take away, be able to use our voices as weapons. Man, we watch out, okay?
Thanksgiving was just an excuse to date rape my matriarch.
And it happened more than 8 generations ago.
And Sacagawea owes me much. She's a captured Schwarzenegger. Who knows what might have happened to her if it had not been for me, a loving husband.
Critical media literacy helps us basically deconstruct that which was meant to be said, that might not be on the page, but that is surrounding the page.
Don't you worry, Sackett. I'm going to call you Janie.
And one of the important things that I see that's happening is the analysis and understanding of media by groups. When we go into isolated areas, perhaps out on the res up north, maybe in the Cree community.
From a Cree community in northern Quebec, there is a different set of knowledge that's there. And teachers from these communities have a very different understanding of history.
And that becomes very, very, very provocative to critically analyze what is being said about my people, what is being said about my personality, what is a stereotype.
It's his first time in the city, and I wonder if he knows. It's red, it's red, it's red, it's red!
The students, whether they were in elementary or high school, they understood that this wasn't a school for them, that the schools weren't there to serve their needs, that they were there to serve somebody else's needs.
One of the amazing things about working in critical pedagogy right now is the vastness of the internet and how we can reach out and be reached out to by people that we would have never been able to have a relationship with.
In this video, you'll see some photographs of items that have been created using crooked knife.
Are now brought into a worldwide community of like-minded people and to sharing people, to actually feel part of a global community. I don't believe all globalism is a good thing, but I do believe the importance of a mediated society means that we will have an informed society and possibly maybe a more loving society.
The Cree communities had a very successful system of their own to educate their youth. They had understandings of child development. They had understanding of the way a community scaffolds and raises children. They were very successful. Their communities flourished. Well, something happened. They stopped flourishing. What was it? How do they now go back what they once had? What's that process? And hopefully critical pedagogy can answer some of those questions.
In the project, we are attempting to reach out to every corner of the earth and seek for critical awareness, a socially just society.
To make sure that it's a worldwide thing and that people from North America listen carefully to what people from Asia, from Africa, from South America, obviously, and from indigenous peoples all around the world have to say about the notion of oppression and how to fight it.
One of the great things about meeting with Nita and Donaldo in New York was that I had the unbelievable privilege of having 4 of my most special graduate students with me. They had heard for so many years and read about Paulo Freire. They had read Donaldo Macedo's book. They knew of the critical pedagogy tradition, and they were able to spend the day with Nita to feel of just her loving warmth. And to watch Donaldo and Nita together, you rarely see footage of them together. Donaldo was like a son to Paulo. He translated Paulo, he worked with Paulo, he fought for Paulo.
Paulo dizia, esse processo não é apenas mental, ele não é apenas uma coisa que se dá dentro de processo cognitivo. Ele implica numa ação, numa militância e num engajamento.
For Nita and Donaldo to be together 10 years after Paulo had died and to talk, even though they talk quite often, but to talk on camera about how much they loved each other, it was really a privilege, and to have students there just made it even more of an important time.